What's up guys, MikeCoco back here bringing you guys a summer costume box review. Now I know this summer I didn't release any of the costume boxes because I was very busy, and so I've decided to compile it into one video, which is just going to be all the summer boxes, June, July, and August. So yeah, I'm going to be covering the costumes for those 3 months. One of the reasons why I didn't do it so soon is because I think that the costumes were slightly underwhelming for free to play, which is why I didn't bother with making the video. But also because again, I was busy. But with the release of the new event, having the what's it called, the login or attendance event, um, it could be interesting to look at some of these costumes and how they affect your selection for the Mythic Season hero. So with that out of the way, let's just get into it. So for June, we have the custom select box. So for Saint Ione, it's probably the best bet to pick up the costume in this box. I mentioned it earlier in a lot of other videos, which is why I don't think I even did a video for this for that month at least, is because I mentioned it so many times. Saint Ione's costume is very good because she's very good as a utility hero. Being able to crit is extremely useful, especially for the new season or the new era myths. The ones that kind of look like clones. They all have attack up, they all have boss damage, and all have critical damage, but none of them have a guaranteed critical. So having Saint Ione means that you're able to actually give them that crit that they're looking for, which is really important, and it's just a good addition for the new hero that we're all gonna get. So again, Saint Ione, extremely good pick. The costume just boosts her damage even further by 30% critical damage. And yeah, and she also heals a little bit, so could potentially be useful in Abyssal Inferno, I suspect. I'm still trying to work out what my team will look like with the addition of Saint Ione and the season mythic, the myth season from the attendance event. And yeah, that's just the work in progress for now. The other two selections are Robin and Dark Avenger Sarah. Neither of them are good because for Robin, it's a 300 Fury skill that increases your attack by 0.3% for I think up to level 100, which goes to about, I want to say 75%. I'm not 100% sure about that. Or if it's 0.3% at level 1, it could potentially just be 30% at level 100. I'm not sure. Again, very few people actually own a level 100 Robin because it doesn't really make a lot of sense. He's a really bad hero, and I don't think that the costume will make him that much better. If you really need a damage dealer, there are tons of other damage dealers that do not cost 300 Fury. It means that he's pretty much useless in Explore, very difficult to use in Abyssal Inferno, so yeah, I don't really see the point. Dark Avenger Sarah, her costume is really interesting. It gives her PvP damage. However, originally, Dark Avenger Sarah looked like she was a Lacita replacement because she had the attack up that went up to 75%. One of the few that actually surpassed 50% at level 100. And the costume gives her PvP damage, which is sort of confusing to me because it's like putting PvP damage on a Lacita. It doesn't really make a lot of sense because she doesn't have magic damage, which means that she's going to be inherently doing worse damage than other PvP heroes. And I don't think Dark Avenger Sarah with costume can replace Claire nor Lacita because she loses out on the boss damage compared to Lacita, and she also doesn't have the magic damage compared to Claire. So trying to replace either of the two with Dark Avenger Sarah is kind of tricky because she seems like a jack of all trades, and she doesn't do either one of them extremely well. So it's very similar with I think War God, the second War God at least. He also gains PvP damage, but he's mainly a PvE hero, so it's like, what's the aim of the costume? It just kind of like just mashes everything together. So for me at least, if you're gonna go with a costume, it should at least specialize in some specific thing, not, you know, go all general. So that's why I don't like Dark Avenger Sarah's costume. And it's also why I'd probably just keep the costume box in case I get a Saint Ione or something. And yeah, so that's it for June. For July, we have Nada, Kokomo, Nas, and Kaguya. And for July, at least, obviously Nada is the perfect choice because she's one of the few Mythic seasons that actually deal magic damage in this new era. I think she's the only one actually, aside from Deiji. But regardless, if you have Nada, obviously get her costume because it gives her critical damage up, which puts her in line with all the other new season Mythics. And otherwise, you have a selection between Kokomo, Nas, and Kaguya. So Kokomo, excuse me. Kokomo sounds like a decent PvP hero, except for the fact that his myth skill is, I think, increased gold after battle, which is extremely useless on a PvP hero. I don't recommend using any of those kind of heroes for PvP, like anyone with EXP, I think instructor or trainer, or gold, which is like multi-millionaire. None of them are any good at PvP, with the exception of Prince Arthur, because he can somewhat act as a cleanser with the Dispel Sword, and that's pretty much as far as I would go to recommending those kind of heroes. So I know the increased Fury consumption by 2 times sounds really good, but there are other heroes that provide this, or not provide, but have this kind of skill in their costume, and have a much better mythic skill. So yeah, I wouldn't even bother. Again, 75% attack up, but it's 300 Fury, which is somewhat mitigated by the 50% Fury consumption. So I suspect if you have a cannon team, he might be a good choice, but I still don't think he'd be very good for Explore because of that 300 Fury. That initial Fury cost will be difficult. And also because he hits in a 3x3, I also suspect he's a multi-target Fury Thief, which means that on single targets, his Fury skill to Fury cost ratio is going to be very, very low. So again, not exactly a great choice in my opinion. Nos is similarly not a great choice. I believe when I had a Nos, I tested his shield, and it seemed to be 50% of his attack, which is in line with Sarissa's shield. So I see no real reason to pick up Nos because they're pretty much going to have the same amount of damage. Sarissa might actually edge Nos out because she's a gun user, because guns inherently have higher damage than whatever Nos is. I think he's a tome or something, or staff or whatever. So if you want a shield, I would just go with Sarissa because it's 200 Fury less and it boosts attack. And yeah, the only disadvantage is that she shields in a row, which can cause exceptions and problems in, you know, Abyssal Inferno and Explore. But I wouldn't even be using Nos in either of those two modes because the shield is just not strong enough. At 50% of the attack, you need to really seriously buff out Nos for it to have even a decently sized shield. For comparison's sake, my Ella has a 75% shield, so the shield is 75% of her attack, and it's like not even close to Swordmaid's shield, and this is maxed out axe and maxed out ring. So if you're really trying to go for Nos as a shielder, in my opinion, don't even bother with the resources because it's just going to be a waste. He's just not worth it. However, his Phoenix myth skill does mean that he can kind of tank, but again, if you want a real shielder, you might as well just go with Swordmaid because he's also 300 Fury, and even if Sword is restricted on in Abyssal Inferno, you always have the ability to pick up Ella's costume now that we have Soul Gems. So yeah, Nos is a bad choice in my opinion. I know a lot of people picked his costume, but I wasn't exactly sure why. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. But anyways, Kaguya is the last and probably the best costume from this month, or July's month. The reason why is because her skill is actually really good. With the costume, she gets a an increase in critical damage by 50% and a attack buff by 75%. And this critical damage increase can be somewhat similar to Lacita's boss damage. Lacita has like 50% boss damage, so you're kind of trading off boss damage for critical damage. And in some ways it's actually better because boss damage only applies to bosses, but critical applies to any crits, and getting a crit is a lot easier than forcing your opponent to be a specific boss in PvE. So I could definitely see Kaguya having potential as a strong damage dealer. She also deals magic damage, however, because she is a magic user, she will be quite squishy. So I would have some concerns over how strong she can tank, but not that bad of a damage dealer. And her own myth skill also increases attack by 30% against bosses. Again, it's kind of flip-flopping on, you know, if it wants to focus on PvP or PvE, but at least the damage in terms of the actual buff, it's actually comparable to some of the better heroes out there. So yeah, Kaguya would definitely be my pick. The only reason I haven't picked her yet is because my Kaguya is extremely weak. As you saw, I have a, what level is it? It's a level 100 rank A Kaguya, and then I have a level 80 something EX myth Kaguya. I just haven't had the time to, you know, level her up and stuff, so that's why I haven't bothered with her costume. So yeah, that's it for July. And for August, it was, I believe, King Pharos, Khalid, and I think Indra. I'm not 100% sure on this, and I'm not sure if there's a way to see it, but I think those were the costumes. Is there a way to check? That's the question. Alright, there's no way to check, I think. So I'm gonna go ahead and check this real quick. I believe that is the case, and if so, actually I think there should be one more hero in August. I just don't remember who it was. King Pharos, Khalid, and I know Indra was definitely one of them. And the last hero must have been... This is pretty bad for a commentary or review. Let me search this up real quick. I honestly don't remember who the last person was. I don't think it would have been that important, otherwise I would have remembered who it actually was. So let me see. By the way, all the costumes are on the Legion of Heroes wiki. However, the site is terrible on mobile, like absolutely horrendous. Hyrule. Okay, so that's the last one for August. Okay, really forgettable. Anyways, so I guess since I forgot Hyrule, I'll go with him first. Very similar, or not extremely similar, but somewhat similar to Kokomo, in the sense that decreases Fury consumption and steals Fury, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty much, in my opinion, a worse version of Kokomo, because he doesn't get any attack up. Now, I could see him trying to replace Alina, if anyone still uses her, because he decreases Fury consumption by 50% for 2 turns rather than 1 turn. But other than that, I don't really see his use. Even in a canon team, I don't think it's too useful. But I know some people might just pick him because he looks cute or whatever. But yeah, so in terms of actual usage, I don't think he's that great. Maybe in PvE he might be useful because I think he actually has one of the highest Fury Steal rates if you hit a lot of targets, because it's a cross. But if you don't hit enough targets, his Fury Steal to Fury cost ratio is pretty poor. So yeah, that's it for Hyrule. And for August, actually, it's pretty much a toss-up between Indra, Khalid, and King Pharos. The reason why King Pharos, he's not that great of a hero in terms of, you know, specific PvP or PvE, because all he does is increase a critical hit for the entire row, and a very minor attack and defense debuff. But the healing is important, and for a lot of people that rely on Vlad for healing reduction, having another hero to do this is really important because it could affect you on certain floors, in Abyssal Inferno. Even though I've already passed the teens floor, which has the healing reduction, you never know if that will come up again. So in terms of utility, he's pretty good, and also because of the fact that he has a Phoenix Mythic skill, it does help with those modes a little bit, especially because he doesn't specifically focus on attack. It means that I don't need him to have boss damage or whatever, because he's not going to be dealing that much damage anyway. I'd rather have more utility out of him, which is exactly what his skill provides. Khalid, again, a very good hero for PvP. A lot of people run him in Arena because he's a 100 Fury, single target Fury Thief. He has PvP, which is, I think, the only Fury Thief as of now to actually have the PvP myth skill. And his skill simply just boosts damage and critical hit. He gains a guaranteed critical, and that actually deals a lot of damage because his own mythic skill already increases his damage. And so when you combine that with a critical hit, yeah, you can take out some pretty weak gun users or bow or even magic users. So yeah, it's a really good option as his costume. It's like I was deciding between Khalid or King Faros, but because I personally think that Arena is far more difficult for free to play than people that pay, I went with King Faros because he's just more suited for PvE, and Khalid is definitely more of a PvP monster. But I've decided not to focus that much on PvP, so yeah, that's if that's how if you're having like a hard time making a decision, you can kind of go with that to make it. And lastly, we have Indra. Obviously, Indra is extremely powerful because guns are really powerful in this game. You have a bunch of very strong gun users, and I believe her costume gives her critical damage up, I think by 30%. And yeah, so it maxes out at 30%. So 0.3% per level up to level 100, which is 30%. And I think that's it. I don't think she has anything else that's added by her skill, but 30% is not anything to laugh at. I think some of the other heroes have a higher critical damage. I think like Garuda has a higher critical damage percent. It's like up to 50%. But still extremely powerful, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Indra is a lot of people's go-to damage dealer for now, I think, and even later it's still a toss-up between certain heroes. So yeah, for the summer costume box, that's pretty much it. A quick recap: June, Saint Ione; July, Nada, and for free-to-play Kaguya; and lastly for August, Indra. If you have Indra, or even if you're planning to get Indra, definitely grab the costume for her. Otherwise, it depends on if you want to focus on PvE or PvP. PvP, go with Khalid. PvE, go with King Faros. Because you never know if you'll need a healing reduction, especially if you don't get the healing reduction myth. I can't even pronounce his name. What is his name? I'm not even gonna bother. Kubera. I'll just call him by the last name. Kubera. Yeah, because he has a healing reduction. So if you don't get him, then Faros is probably a good idea. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the summer costume box. Will work on the October costume box, hopefully before everyone picks up their mythic season hero. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Peace.